people who barely know each other stranded on a planet called Desolation. No route trackers, no way off, and judging by what you just told us, very little hope of survival. I need all the information I can get, including, but not limited to, what this ghost monument actually looks like when it appears.
Hey everybody, my name's Oscar and this is Adam, and we're here to break down Doctor Who Series 11, Episode 2, The Ghost Monument.
Obviously, if you haven't seen the episode, go and check it out right now, as we're going to be talking all the spoilers. We're going to be delving into some of our series arc theories, of which there are many.
Lots.
And we're going to be breaking down all the Easter eggs that we notice. Right, let's get into it.
Can I ask, what is actually going on here? Because I'm confused. Are you confused?
Pretty confused.
Proper confused. I'm way beyond confused.
So, Oscar, what were your thoughts on the Ghost Monument?
I really enjoyed it actually. I'd say it's on a par with the first episode, but it felt very similar in terms of its structure, in that there wasn't a huge amount of plot there. You know, it was it was simple without being simplistic, is how I would describe it, and it was more allowing room for the characters to breathe and for us to get to know those characters. I thought the most striking thing about it, obviously, they went and shot it on location in South Africa. I thought it was a really beautiful episode, and it felt
that big budget feel, didn't
definitely.
it?
It felt like a huge sci-fi film, and actually, it felt very, very Star Wars to me. Like there was obviously like the droids and blasters, and
the three suns in the sky.
Exactly, it was Tatooine, wasn't it?
We're on an alien planet, Graham.
Well, the three suns in the sky are a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah, I think I preferred it on the whole to the first episode. I feel like now we're going, it feels like the episode's kind of trying to find its feet, and I think it really hit the ground running, no pun intended there, because there's a lot of running in this episode.
Delete yourself.
Shut up. I liked how it was, like you said, pared back, but it didn't feel unsophisticated. It just felt like, you know, Chibnall's being smart. He's keeping things sort of simple to not overwhelm like new fans.
Pacey as well, really pacey. Like we raced through it. There was barely a moment to, and I feel like now, okay, we're going to be at episode 3 soon. I feel like we do need a moment to just sort of pause a little bit, because the first 2 episodes have been really quick. But so far, I'm loving this series. All right, so the action picks up exactly where we left it at the end of last week's episode. Our gang of intrepid explorers are stranded in space.
Yep, split.
Right
down the middle.
Exactly. They get taken up or saved, we think, by 2 scavengers or
trawlers. I'm not entirely sure what they...
Well, I wasn't sure at the start. Obviously, it turns out they are racers, essentially, and they land and crash land, respectively, on Desolation.
Yeah, and Desolation is the final planet on this great space race, or as the Doctor calls it, kind of like a space Paris to Dakar rally.
So, what, like a race? Like Paris-Dakar in space? Are you two space racing each other?
We're the finalists.
4,000 entered, 2 are left. Only 1 will claim the prize.
And they are racing to the titular Ghost Monument.
Which obviously we find out later on is the TARDIS. We finally get to see the TARDIS, Adam.
It's so mysterious how it just appears like that in the hologram, and you're like, oh, the TARDIS is there. It's the TARDIS. This is the Ghost Monument.
Exactly. So Epso and Angstrom are doing the final leg of this huge race to the Ghost Monument, and we get to see this awful, awful planet that reminds me of my hometown. No, it doesn't.
It's 100% Bristol.
No, Bristol's amazing. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that now.
But it's full of like, I don't know, it just felt like just a good old-fashioned adventure, right? So like they had to overcome like toxic water.
Yeah, there was like deadly, like flesh-eating microbes in the water.
It was very weird, wasn't it? There's like sort of ruins that like are very mysterious and guarded by those weird alien guards
with guns.
Whoa, they weren't there when we came in.
Where did they come from?
I don't know.
Then there's the remnants, which are these deadly bandages that we see attempt to kill Epso. Everyone else saves him, thank God.
Yeah, they were an interesting point about those bandages. Like, there's quite a lot of shots just lingering on these weird bandages before that moment. Like, you know something's weird about them. I love that element of foreshadowing.
Yeah,
I think that was really smart.
It was really, really cool. But it turns out the remnants and everything on this planet has essentially been engineered by scientists to be as deadly as possible.
We are scientists. Abducted, tortured, and made to work while our families are held hostage.
They didn't want to do that. They were being forced to by our old pals, the Stenza from last week, Tim Shaw, if you remember him. But obviously, Epso and Angstrom finally managed to make it to the finishing line. They decide to do so together. They share the winnings. Meanwhile, the Doctor and her friends finally make it back to the TARDIS.
My beautiful ghost monument.
right, we finally get to see our first glimpse of the new TARDIS. The Doctor's had a makeover, and so has her spaceship. Adam, what did you make of it?
I mean, it was not my favourite TARDIS interior.
Okay.
I'll say that. Like, I found it, on the whole, a little bit cold and uninviting in some ways. It kind of like the whole ice sculpture things reminded me of like Krypton from Superman. But I did like how tactile it felt, you know, like, and this is something that a lot of New Who's TARDIS interiors have been doing recently with all the weird instruments and stuff.
And also it ties into the Doctor as well, right? She's very much been sort of painted as this engineer, essentially. And,
Yeah,
you know, we
fixing
saw
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I think, speaks to what a lot of this new TARDIS seems to be about. It's very, like you say, very physical. Like, we see the hourglass, which I thought was a really nice touch.
That was a good touch, yeah.
And, like, there's like a toy TARDIS in the TARDIS, like TARDISception.
One of the things I really liked was the entrance. That it had that sort of, you know...
It has a side to it now,
Yeah,
right?
so it looks like how the TARDIS should look inside. So you get that weird little moment where you're like, oh, that's what the TARDIS should look like. That's what a police box looks like inside. And then you go in further and you're like, oh, wow.
yeah, exactly. Although what I will say, I think one of my favourite bits about it was that there was a very good, oh my God, it's bigger on the inside. Like, that is always a key moment of a new series, and I thought that was excellently done.
It was a police box.
It still is on the outside.
How do you fit all this stuff inside a police box?
But my absolute favourite thing about the new TARDIS interior is...
Creamy.
Okay, let's get into some of the big questions and theories that came out of the Ghost Monument. First up, we've got another mention of the Stenza.
We had no choice but to obey. The Stenza.
Yeah, obviously these were the big bad guys from last week. Tim Shaw, the evil dentist with the teeth on his face and the evilness and the bad stuff. And he was forcing, or not him, but the Stenza were forcing the scientists into making Desolation so evil, essentially. And although we don't actually get to see them in this episode, we find it very interesting that they were very clearly and overtly mentioned. And we're thinking, could they potentially be the big bad villain of the series as a whole?
Right after that big bombshell about the Stenza, we got this scene with the Remnants getting inside our main characters' heads and specifically spooking the Doctor out with a reference to the Timeless Child.
Afraid of your own newness. We see deeper though, further back, the Timeless Child.
What did you just say?
She doesn't know.
Now, this Timeless Child seems like a really mysterious figure. We don't know whether it is, you know, maybe the Doctor as a child or a child of the Doctor's. So we don't know a huge amount about the Doctor's childhood. It's left really mysterious across all, like, 55 years of the series. What we do know is that, like, we saw the Doctor very briefly as a child at the very end of Listen, which was way back in Series 8. And what's interesting here, I think, is that I saw BBC America tweeting a line of dialogue from that episode, which is "Fear is a superpower," which is a monologue that Peter Capaldi gives to young Danny Pink in that episode. And that's really what, like, the Remnants are kind of triggering in the Doctor here. So it all ties, I think, a little bit
It's a weird link, isn't it?
It's a weird link to make, and it's very, like, neatly tied up there, but like it still leaves a lot of questions about this Timeless Child, if it is anything to do with the Doctor as a child.
On the other hand, it could be a reference to a child of the Doctor. Obviously, in Series 4, we saw David Tennant's Doctor have a daughter whose name was Jenny, and she does, at the end of that episode, come to life, and she, as far as we're aware, is still at large somewhere out there in space. So it could refer to her. The Doctor also has a granddaughter way back in the 60s. The first companion to the Doctor was his granddaughter, Susan. So we know there are descendants of the Doctor out there.
Desolation itself seems like a very interesting place as well, and not just for the reasons that we've already mentioned. We now know that the Ghost Monument, which is the TARDIS, appears there every 1,000 rotations, which is just really weird, actually, especially seeing as the Doctor
Seems to have never been there before,
yeah,
right?
it's very, like, yeah, she doesn't know the place.
It's weird that her ship, which she is pretty much glued to for her entire history, goes there every sort of 3 years or so without her knowing about it.
Yeah, because we took one rotation to basically be a day in this example. So, like, having 1,000 rotations, and have the TARDIS just randomly appear just felt very mysterious. Like, why is it doing that? And especially, why is it doing that without the Doctor's knowledge? You know, what's going on there?
And then there's the fact that Angstrom and Epso and Ilan disappear at the end of this episode, never to be seen again, at least we think. And then there's the fact that Stenza are seemingly connected to this place as well.
It definitely feels like we're going to see it again, right?
It feels like Desolation is going to come back at some point, or at least I really hope it does, because it was a really, really interesting place, and there's a lot of links already, even in the space of one episode.
Right, I've got a game-changing theory that could totally be wrong, but I'm going to go with it.
Go on.
What if Desolation is Gallifrey, but thousands of years in the future? That's totally bollocks, probably.
What, and the Stenza are the Time Lords?
Oh no, that's the theory too far.
Sorry, too many theories.
I don't know, but like it definitely feels like Desolation is being set up for something more than we've seen.
Well, that would explain why the TARDIS keeps coming back there, right? If it
yeah,
was
definitely.
Gallifrey.
Yes. Ooh.
There we go. I'm helping you out here with your theory.
Yeah. So before this series kicked off, the producers were trying to tone down any emphasis on like big overarching series arcs, instead saying that the character development was going to be their core sort of focus. And I think we're starting to see that come into play right now. How did you feel the Doctor develop, say?
I don't know, it's tricky. I feel like I really like this Doctor and I really like Jodie Whittaker's performance, but I didn't really feel like the Doctor as a character, or this iteration of the Doctor, grew much in this episode. She was so busy trying to fix problems and solve issues and rescue everyone that I feel like her character hasn't been given a moment to just pause and rest. And hopefully now that we've found the TARDIS, that moment will come. But at the moment, I'm feeling like we need an episode for her to just sort of be able to relax a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you're always going to have that element of danger with Doctor Who, but she does just need like 5 minutes to just like put her feet up and have a cup of tea. Do you know what I mean?
And a custard cream.
And a custard cream, exactly.
Yeah. So I really think that the Ryan and Graham dynamic was nicely developed in this episode. You know, with that sort of sequence of them fixing up the boat.
I'm going to look out for you, son.
I'm not a kid.
Okay. Well, I was hoping you'd say I'm going to look out for you too.
And I think that's really providing quite a nice backbone to some of the human drama in this series. You know, how Graham, I feel, is very grounded, and he's just... I'm actually really warming to Bradley Walsh in this role. I think he's actually becoming a really down-to-earth guy that is being a great surrogate for the audience in terms of he's asking the right questions, he's asking them at the right time, and he's just very practical, right? And Ryan was very...
I find him really annoying in this episode, actually. Like, I get the feeling that it was deliberate, that he was supposed to be this sort of petulant child, and you saw that, I think, with the Call of Duty section where he sort of like grabbed a gun and went out there like all guns blazing, and it was like, okay, that was a bit much.
Who's next? See, that's what I'm talking about!
Yeah, but then again, I think you need those moments where you see them like inexperienced and stupid like that to see them develop at the end of the series. So I think it's important that we're having that now, and I hope that the character will develop like naturally as it goes.
For sure. But when it comes to Yaz, I feel like at the moment Yaz is still lacking something, or just anything really. Like she seems fine, but I don't know, there's not a lot of character there. Like I really enjoyed in the first episode where she was set up as this person who wanted more of a challenge in her work, and since then that's not really been built upon at all really. No, Obviously it's very difficult for her to build upon her police work when she's on an alien planet trying to fight off a bunch of rags.
Mate, she's got a police box now. She's got
that sorted.
Yeah,
she's at home. But yeah, I feel like she also is one that's in need of an episode. I feel like The Woman Who Fell to Earth was weirdly actually more focused on Ryan and Graham, whereas now the Doctor and Yaz are both in need of an episode to just be able for their characters to be able to blossom out, you know?
Definitely. I kind of feel like the next episode, Rosa, is going to be... I don't know, I just have a feeling it's going to be Yaz's central episode, so maybe we'll see her come to the fore next week.
All right, Adam, we haven't touched on it yet, so let's just finally get to the title sequence, which we finally saw at the start of this episode. It kicked things off. There was no cold open like Doctor Who usually starts with. We were straight in there with that iconic music. What did you think?
I mean, it really took me by surprise that it just happened. I was like, oh wow, we're going with the title sequence straight away, right? Okay. And I was sort of struck by how short it was.
Really short?
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds maybe even shorter.
Less than that.
I don't know, my feelings are mixed. I kind of liked the art style of it. It was very sort of splash, you know, like it had that sort of splash comics sort
A bit
of
like
effect.
a kaleidoscope or something. it
Yeah,
felt like.
very much like your shirt actually.
Hey.
This loud shirt that
Listen,
you're wearing.
I only got this yesterday. It's brand new, just for you. I put this on this morning.
You
Thinking,
watch
oh,
that episode, you're like, I'm going to get a shirt that looks just like that.
Exactly.
Okay, time to get into this episode's Easter eggs, of which we found quite a few actually.
So this one was actually pointed out by one of our commenters on the last episode. So big thanks to our friend David McKee, who pointed out that Bradley Walsh has actually been in the Whoniverse before. He was in the Sarah Jane Adventures Series 2, Episode 3, The Day of the Clown, and he actually played 3 characters in that episode. He played Odd Bob, Elijah Spellman, and the Pied Piper. He's a very versatile actor.
Perhaps the biggest reference to Doctor Who history is the Venusian Akaido.
See this? Nice move. Thanks. Venusian Aikido. A grandmaster pacifist. Temporarily paralyses while also being fundamentally harmless. Very clever, those Venusian nuns.
Which is an unarmed combat style that was learned by Patrick Troughton's second Doctor, but was frequently used by the third Doctor, John Pertwee.
And we see the Doctor in this episode give a pair of her sunglasses to Graham, and we think that might be a reference to the fact that Peter Capaldi's Doctor had a pair of Sonic sunglasses way back in Series 9, and he kept them for the length of his run.
One of my particular highlights was Ryan saying, "Oh, why is it always ladders?"
Why is it always ladders?
Which I felt was a clear reference to Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indy obviously says, "Snakes. Why does it have to be snakes?" A nice reference was when the team finally laid eyes on the TARDIS, Yaz referred to the fact that it looked like the green one in Sheffield, which is actually a real-life police box that is still there.
And finally, we looked into that reference where the Doctor says she was a hologram for 3 weeks of her life.
I love a good hologram. I was a hologram once, for 3 weeks.
And the closest we could find was in the Peter Capaldi double-parter Under the Lake and Before the Flood, where the Doctor projected a hologram ghost version of himself into the future. Alright, so last week we asked you guys to put your thoughts on The Woman Who Fell to Earth in the comments of our breakdown, so let's take a look at some of our favourites.
So our first comment comes from the Hellfire Club, who said, "Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor. The first episode was great and the companions were good. I love the diversity of the series, which developed well in modernisation of society today."
Yeah, I think it's great that Doctor Who's finally turned to having a female lead. I think it was about time, and so far she's doing great, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And my favourite comment was from Tristan Pignan, I hope I've pronounced your name right, I'm sorry if not, who says, "About the characters, the amazing thing is, I think I can say more about any of them in one episode than I could say about Bill Potts in the whole 10th season."
Oh, that's harsh from Bill. I like Bill.
I think Bill was great, but you know what, there is a lot of like grounded humanity to these characters, and I'm looking forward to seeing where their arcs go.
Right, that is it for our breakdown of the Ghost Monument. Let us know your thoughts on the Ghost Monument in the comments section below, as we'll be reading out some of our favourite comments on next week's breakdown, where we'll be discussing Episode 3, Rosa, which is set during the 1950s US Civil Rights Movement.
And for that, make sure to subscribe. You can come yell at us on Twitter as well. I'm at DeusZ.
I'm at Adam Rees-Mace.
And we'll see you next week, guys. Don't know why I'm saluting.